I remember when I was looking for a job a decade ago, it was like you would do anything for the job. Like there was just the job, and you would do whatever the recruitment process was, however it was long, how poorly you were treated in the recruitment process. You were like so, I guess desperate is the word, but like really driven to get that job that nothing else matters. Now that mindset is completely gone. What really helps me when I think of how to build a team, how to really scale it up, and how really make sure that the talent acquisition is working, is trying to think of talent acquisition in the same way that kind of business thinks of its product.
Robert Krzyzaniak is a talent acquisition expert, someone who's held high-level TA positions at the likes of Adidas, Gorillas, and Taxfix. Now, I wanted to get him on because he has seen how the industry has evolved over the last 10 years. But more importantly, he's uniquely positioned to have insights on how the next 10 years will unfold. And also how talent teams now can position themselves in order to meet and beat the competition in what is the most competitive market for hiring we have ever seen. This is what we unpack in this episode. So, if you are in the talent acquisition domain, whether you're in a team or lead one, this is the episode for you. I promise you will get some great insights and nuggets that you can take right now, even on a small budget, into your day-to-day. Robert's a true expert in his field, and you can absolutely see why he has progressed so quickly in his TA career. So, without further ado, I'm Alex Bloisey, and this is the Building Our World podcast. Rob, well, thank you so much for taking the time to come on the show and share your wisdom. Recruitment now in 2022, there's literally never been a better time to be a recruiter. And the thirst for knowledge for recruitment as well has never been greater. But first of all, I just wanted to take it right back to the beginning, to your first steps into recruitment itself. I know we had something in common, that we have both studied history at university and then fell into recruitment. So we're going to talk over so much stuff, and we're really going to get into the nitty gritty of a lot of things. But how did this whole recruitment journey start for you in the first place?
Great. Thanks, Alex. And welcome everybody listening as well. My recruitment journey. Okay. I guess the word is, I never dreamed or thought about becoming a recruiter, kind of fallen into the industry, as you kind of said it yourself. But how did it really happen for me? It was a history graduate. Didn't really know what to do with myself. I guess, what do you do after history? Didn't want to be a history teacher. Moved to London after graduating, and was just kind of doing some jobs. I kind of started actually working in retail for some, high-end brands like Dior, like Louboutin. But after a couple of years on the shop floor in retail, I was like, well, this is not for me. This is not what I studied, and I think I have so much more to give than that. But honestly, I really didn't know what to do with myself. And then the recruitment agency reached out to me saying, hey, we heard that you're looking for a new role. Do you want to work for just another retailer? And I said, no, sorry, guys. Like, I don't want to do this anymore. And they literally just hung up, and that was it. And then 2 days later, a Polish girl working for the agency called me back. And I don't know if this is a Polish commodity or it was pure serendipity. But she just said, look, I just stumbled upon your profile. It says that you actually want to do something else. And we might actually need somebody in an agency with your background that really work in retail, that understands kind of luxury retail, and really can maybe help us hire. At that point, I was like, well, I never would in a million years thought that I would be kind of, want to work in recruitment agency. But I had nothing to lose. So I said to myself, sure, let's give it a go. What's the worst thing that can happen? If I fail, I fail. But if I succeed, maybe something going to come out of it. And that's how really I became a sourcer. I became a sourcer in that recruitment firm in London. And I stayed there for 3.5 years. And over that journey, really discovered that recruitment actually suits my skills, suits my character. I find myself well in this industry. The agency was also really good. They really care for people as
Mm,
much as recruitment agencies kind of do, but really was a great environment. And that really was the first couple of years that I became kind of a junior recruitment consultant from there, and then a recruitment consultant, and was kind of ultimately managing kind of my own desk
yeah. Oh,
agency.
okay. That's interesting because so many people who I speak to about their first sort of agency recruitment job in London, they sort of go like, you can be really, really unlucky in terms of not even you could join a good company, but you could join a team that doesn't have the right manager or like a really kind of cold desk or not the support. And for you, this would have been what is it 10 years ago that you?
Roughly, yes.
Yeah, I mean, recruitment has changed enormously in those 10 years as well. So, what did you actually? I mean, I started recruitment in 2017, and I think even the gap between sort of like 2012 and 2017 was huge. So, what did actually recruitment look like for you back then? Like the nuts and bolts of it?
Yeah. And I guess the recruitment transformation journey
Mm,
has been tremendous and has been really significant over the kind of the last decade or so. I remember when I started in recruitment, and maybe also was due that I work in an agency, we were literally note takers. You will go in, you will just meet with the hiring team or kind of business that wants to hire, and they were like, we want this person, this much years experience, this industry, this salary, go and do. No
mm,
questions asked, no pushback, no kind of like if you give them a bit of market advice, that's probably all you would do, but you would just go and execute, and you'd be just kind of this note taker that goes in
yeah,
and then tries to really find that profile. And that was really when it also kind of slowly started to transitioning. It was just after kind of the recession, of that 2009, 2010. There was abundance of people in the market, but then, talent became kind of slowly more shorter supply over kind of each and individual years. And that really drove a lot of the transformation that the talent
yeah,
acquisition was really ongoing. When I, after 3.5 years working at agency, joined an Adidas and ultimately moved to Germany, they were just building up the talent acquisition function. Like imagine a
mm,
company like Adidas, 60,000 employees
yeah,
worldwide, and that was 2015. I was, one of the first recruiters that were actually really scaling up the team. Because then really businesses started to see the importance of talent acquisition, the impact that it has, but it also that you cannot build businesses without people in, and you want to actually have the right people in those jobs,
mm,
so you need to go after them, bring them
yeah,
on, design processes, design experience, design the employer brand, like offer them something that is actually going to be interesting, that they actually will enjoy. And this really from then onwards just became more and more of scaling the function up from just professionalism of what we do, but also toolkits, methodologies. Sourcing came on board as a very important topic. Like, how do we really bring people to the process? What messages do we send them? Like, how do we go about really, putting our offer in front of their. As we started more interviewing, also the coordination came on board, saying how can we really effectively really process all those applications, all the processes, manage the candidates to really go through. Employer brand came on board and saying,
yeah,
hey, how really we can attract and speak to those people. And then all of a sudden, then you had started having more capabilities within the TA team, but also the expectations and the ambition level of the business keep growing. So you started producing more complex reporting, started speaking to more senior stakeholders. You had to really elevate kind of how you business partner, potentially how you challenge, how you start to direct the conversations. And then
mm,
really fast forward to the tech boom of the last, it's going on for a while, but especially kind of in Berlin on the last kind of 8, 7, 6 years. And then talent acquisition is the life and blood of a business. Whenever the businesses kind of get any funding, first thing one of they do, we need to scale. So
yeah,
all of a sudden, the recruitment teams becomes kind of one of the most important functions. I remember me joining Taxfix, and we have actually built up a very significant recruitment team, and we didn't even have people team. We had like couple people doing HR ops, and there was like 15 people in recruitment, because all of a sudden, like, this is really kind of the most important for the business. And now really that kind of drives a lot of spotlight on the function. All of a sudden you meet with CEOs, C-levels, you have to weekly kind of update what's going on, you participate in all the strategy discussion meetings, you steer conversations around kind of how we can actually staff the business plans and the business needs of every kind of company that you are joining. And really now, talent acquisition is just so much more than kind of what it's once been. And
Yeah.
we have vastness of technology, toolkits, programs, methodologies. We're talking about things like growth hacking, like scraping, coding automation, even programmatic marketing in TA. And there is kind of never-ending need to really get better and really kind of keep stepping up on how you go about TA.
Yeah, absolutely. It's crazy, isn't it? That, and people forget this, and people like myself who are still pretty young in the jobs market, in the grand scheme of things, like 2015, even then, like an internal talent team would have been extremely rare. And now, yeah, absolutely, it's indispensable. But what did companies do before that? Was it just kind of HR would just deal with applications? But I suppose if you're in the middle of a recession, not many companies, that sort of 28 to 2012, I would say, the kind of recovery time, not many companies were scaling sort of too much anyway. But was there just such an abundance of candidates that HR could just deal with it, get the applicants in, and just crack on?
Yes, exactly. And then also, I guess this, I don't want to say the standards were not high, because not like businesses were not hiring
Mm,
like exceptional people. But the more we got professionalized, also the businesses, the more kind of niche and specific talent became. But also with just the shortage of talent, it became just
mm,
so much harder to actually convince the right people to join.
yeah.
And it was also around that time that a lot of interesting new departments in the wider people function kind of keep developing. So it was a natural that TA also will kind of start evolving and just this kind of shift on just a transformation in HR as well, from being just again note takers. And I don't want to offend any
Yeah.
HR professionals, but that's also when they started a couple of decades ago, to then also really now being a very strategic business partner. So they also needed to go into what they need to do and actually leave recruitment to people that are professionals here, because most of HR managers, they kind of can do their job, but are they real passionate professional recruiters?
Yeah,
They probably are
it's
not.
an entirely different thing.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, absolutely entirely different thing. But do you also think that? I mean, it's definitely obviously to do with the jobs market in terms of it's now incredibly candidate short, and as the last 10 years have gone on, it's continued in that trend. But I don't know if it's cause and effect, but do you think employees now or people interviewing at companies, just the way society's changed, demand more from their companies? So you have to treat everyone nicely. You have to be supportive. um, the way I view things sort of from sort of 10, 20 years ago was that the employer had a lot of power, and even in a buoyant jobs market, like there just seems to be employees are much more eager now to draw the line with their employers, which makes it harder for companies to hire, not in the sense of finding people, but they need to paint an image of
Yeah.
themselves in their branding and in their processes and just everything. And I think that's a societal change as well. I know I'm going completely off topic, but like even like kids now in school, or like just they kind of push back a bit and they answer back, and
Yeah.
there's that, it's just a different way of seeing authority now.
No, there has been a tremendous shift in mindset, and I think I'm actually happy that you picked this up, because that also plays a lot into this. I remember when I was looking for a job a decade ago, it was like you would do anything for the job. Like there was just the job, and you would do whatever the recruitment process was, however it was long, how poorly you were treated in the recruitment process. You were like so I guess desperate is the word, but like really driven to get that job, that nothing else matters. Now that mindset is completely gone. Like
Mm,
these days, people can have just so much to pick from, but also really what is important to them has completely kind of shifted. And now it's the other way around. Now I see companies that are almost like desperate to get candidates. Like
yeah.
they would do whatever it takes, whatever they need to design the recruitment process, whatever they kind of need to offer, whatever to get a candidate. So it's completely kind of shift of kind of this
Yeah.
predicament of who has the, I don't want to say power, but who is kind of the one deciding or picking who. Because it's no longer the companies picking candidates, the candidates are actually picking companies. And that really also driven and kind of is driving a lot of the change in how TA is operating and being perceived.
Mm, yeah, absolutely. I think it's a mixture, isn't it, of the jobs market and also um, just society in general. And the pandemic has 10x that. Like people now want their work life balance, their flexibility, and it's like completely non negotiable now. I know a lot of
Yeah.
companies are doing like the 4 day work week as well.
Because if you don't offer that, then somebody else will,
Mm,
and ultimately that is the problem with the market. You always find people that are pushing and are going forward, and then people that kind of don't fall in line are completely losing. Like look at what happened even in the kind of the Silicon Valley when some of the companies decided we're going to go remote, and some companies said, "Oh, we want you to be on site." Like there was just a mass exodus of people,
mm,
and that kind of keep happening everywhere. So ultimately, you just there's no other option. You just have to follow what everybody kind of else is doing, because otherwise you're going to be left
mm,
behind.
yeah. Do you think the bit off topic, but do you think the 4 day work week will be normal in a few years' time? I think Volt of the first sort of unicorn to do it. Do you think that will kick off, or is it a fad?
That is interesting because I also was thinking about myself. I was like, can I do my work week in 4 days? And you know what? I think you can. I'm not saying it's going to take off and people are going to adopt it, but when you really think about what you're spending time on and what is really critical and important to your work, you can actually, delegate
Mm,
some things. You can maybe just kind of say to a couple of people, look, this is not what we're going to focus now. And there's this 80-20 rule, like 20%
yeah.
of your work time generates 80% of your actual work output, and the rest is just noise, just kind of meetings because you have to meet, report because you have to fill in a report. I don't know, just making this up now, but you can actually, like, the most of our work is being done within 20% of our time. So based on this principle, it's possible. Now, will it really kind of take off? That is, to be seen. A lot of, but what the thing is with progress, if it's actually technically possible, it was most likely happen, and that's
Yeah.
kind of across all of things that, if you can imagine this working, then it probably will actually at one point work. The question is, I probably at what point, with the
Yeah.
current push for work-life balance, for well-being, for psychological safety, for kind of just health of your employees. I might actually think that might be even sooner than later.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the real change will come if there's like a report or data that comes out that's like it makes a business case for it. I mean, that's when you see like the real change. I mean,
Yeah,
especially
because also the real change with remote work was that we are all forced to do it for
yeah,
a year, and all of a sudden we discover we can, and nothing collapses, and everything works, and people are as productive as they were. I maybe have a hopeful feeling that the same might happen with the 4 days week. Like at one point, business is just going to try, they're going to discover, well, we are as productive as we were. So
hmm,
it's just always, you're always kind of anxious and unsure about the unknown. And I think that's just a human thing.
yeah. Worldwide remote working was a pretty extensive trial. If you're ever going to do like a scientific study, there's actually in the UK, I think either 30 companies or 300 companies are trialing 4 day week. They're doing like a proper study into it. So it'll be interesting to see the results of that.
Yeah.
If it can be sort of if the results come out either way. Um, so now, obviously, talent acquisition. We've gone through kind of why it's so important, and there's like a zillion aspects to it. and quite rightly so because it's needed. You've obviously worked in high scale companies, tech companies. Where do you even start? Like, you've got companies recruiting, say, engineers, like in their headcount, sort of 3-digit number. And then there's all that comes with it: product, ops, literally everything. So you've been in that sort of hyper growth environment. Where do these companies even start when they look to scaling, and what does the talent team need to do?
It's a good question. I guess it's $1 million question,
Yeah.
because getting talent acquisition right is also a bit of an art and science at the same time. What really helps me when I think of how to build a team, how to really scale it up, and how really make sure that the talent acquisition is working, is trying to think of talent acquisition in the same way that kind of business thinks of its product, in a way that you have a product that you're trying to sell. In our world is a company. You want to get people to kind of work there, and then you have product manager, for example, that would come in and look at the entirety of what you're trying to do, from who is our customer, where do they coming from, what is actual our product consists of. If it's a digital product, it would be an app that there's an onboarding screen, there's a couple other screens, and ultimately converts you into a customer. And they look then through this kind of product funnel and go deep into kind of data, deep into each individual stages, trying to really analyze every little detail from UX point of view, from UI point of view, from kind of data point of view, to really make everything optimal and ultimately achieve the goal of converting people into customers. And this is really what kind of TA does as well. When you think about the recruitment funnel, think about the kind of people coming in, and kind of how we really kind of, and from operations point of view, want to really move them across and get them to be hires. And there is kind of, you can think about it kind of like a conveyor belt,
Hmm.
and then each individual stages, you really kind of have to go in and optimize it and have to adopt that product management thinking about who are our candidates, from kind of the talent mapping, talent intelligence, but also kind of really data, also kind of doing like almost a user interviews, really discovering what do they want, what really drives them, like what would they want to receive, like from an offer, what kind of process they want to have. Try to really then go in and design the recruitment process from every individual stages, going really deep into what is recruiter responsibilities, hiring manager responsibilities, what good looks like at this stage, what we want to achieve, how to push quality here, and really optimize that funnel from conversion point of view, from time spent, from kind of how this all converts into kind of the ultimate hire that we will make. And also think about kind of your employer brand and kind of recruitment marketing in the same way that a brand manager would think about their brand, also as a marketeer would think about kind of performance marketing. It's a very
Hmm.
interesting kind of analogies, but if you start thinking of the talent acquisition as a business would do about their own product, and really employing, user design, experience design, data, and analytics function, performance marketing, brand management. Then you have this kind of entirety of kind of really TA universe of what it is, of
Yeah.
each of those elements kind of coming into it. And then you just have to really decide which are the round for you and for the business that you're really representing here.
Yeah. Do you know what? I've never. That's so obvious, but I've never heard anyone sort of have that analogy of kind of the TA department being like its own business and essentially selling a product. But when you put it like that, it it just kind of makes so much sense, and you can almost justify the amount of effort and resources that you then put into it, and in this market, that's absolutely what's needed. So say if you're following that strategy, and I know a lot of companies do, maybe haven't put it in those sorts of words, when you're actually assembling the talent team, um, I'm guessing you've had your sort of fair share of assembling talent teams and talent strategies. Are you then building teams for each part of that process? So you have like a branding team, process, data team. Um, are you trying to do that all at the same time, or does like one come before the other?
Good question. I guess the ultimate building block to all of it is a kind of your recruiter role. Like those guys should always kind of be probably what the business hire first, but then everything else should probably come kind of around the same time, because it's all very much interconnected. It's in the kind of how sourcing operates with recruitment, with coordination, with employer branding. It's all part of that one funnel or that one kind of universe of TA function that all come into play at different stages, at different moments, and they all have kind of different input. But if you really want to push for that funnel, product funnel that you're building to be kind of the best there is, you need all those angles. Because if you have, let's say, you're not going to have employer brand or recruitment marketing, so you can design all of this you want to design, but you, for
Mm,
example, not going to have enough people coming in through, or not enough people engage with your process, and kind of knowing what your company is. So
mm,
that's also not gonna really
yeah.
make sense. So yeah, it's part of that kind of build. It's really interesting to really convince the business to do that. I guess that kind of thinking is pro, like you said, a lot of the TA teams are trying to adopt it, trying to do it, but still it's a case to build for a lot of kind of the founders, the C levels, to really showcase them the complexity of really what good TA team is. I think it's easy to build okay TA team, but if you want it to be good, or even if you want it to be great, that kind of delta of
Yeah,
actual sources that time needed is actually exponentially kind of rising then.
yeah. Well, that's the reason I asked, because there's a lot of talent teams in Berlin and in Europe that are trying to grow but struggling, or they're not getting the right investment to do basically what you're saying. So maybe if we kind of speak now to those people in those positions with a small talent team, is there a way that they can just, even on a small scale, just divide up that production line and at least build the bare bones of something that can get a little bit of success, so then they can go to like the C-level board and say, look, we've done this, we need to 10x it, but we have a blueprint.
Well, and it's a good question, because resources are scarce, like across the board, and not always TA team are fully resourced. How I have kind of done it also in the past is a lot of that expertise that actually, to build a great TA team could actually not sit within TA. When you adopt the thinking that, hey, TA is selling a product, you don't have to build everything from scratch with your own resources. For example, if you have operation difficulties, stage don't convert, or we're taking too much time and kind of we have bogged down kind of operationally across the equipment funnel, what I would do, I will go, for example, to our customer success team. Like they do something very similar. They have a high
Mm,
amount of interactions, goes in hundreds. For them, it's all about metrics, efficiency, pushing through kind of their own operations, so it's actually minimized. So you can very much go and engage the team saying, this is my problem, I don't know how to fix it. Can I have, an X person for 20% of the time, maybe working with TA, trying
mm,
to help us? Same goes for data. It's not always easy to get a data person in TA, but every almost company has a data department. You can go in and just say, hey, can we do a rotation? One person can also work for TA for 1 day a week, 2 days a week. Same goes for employer branding, marketing. So you can build a little bit of that ecosystem and that thinking, and potentially bring that expertise from other teams in order to help you. But obviously, there have to be a buy-in from the business. They have to understand that kind of building talent acquisition is is,
mm.
is important, because you're always going to get a pushback. Our resources are tight, but if you make the right case, people should actually be able to help you with this.
Yeah, I think that's why a lot of talent teams are getting the investment now, is because the business case is pretty clear. if a company cannot grow. And in this market, like, there is no hiding places. I was speaking to a client a few weeks ago, and this was more kind of just on like the pure recruiting side, but they were just like, a few years ago, we could maybe miss a candidate, or um, not schedule an interview till the week after, and like little things like that. Like, we could basically drop the ball and it would be fine. We'd get away with it. Now, not a chance. Absolutely not a chance. And the same goes for that kind of business side of the processes. But have you ever had like any pushback when you've had to pitch to, the powers that be in a company, or is there anything that you do to kind of make the case for you and the team?
Yeah, and I had plenty of pushbacks in my time, trying to bring like data tools or NPS kind of candidate experience tools. There's always, people or, they look at you saying, why do you need another tool? Like, how many tools does TA need? But my advice is always connected to tangible outcomes. Try to convert it, for example, when you think about NPS tool, try to think all the ways that it's actually going to improve candidate experience, generates insight on what to change, and just estimate that would, let's say, bump up our NPS by 5 points, which ultimately would make the offer acceptance rate 20% higher, which makes, I don't know, 100 new hires a year. And if you put it this way, that 5K, 10K for an NPS tool that can generate, 100 candidates, 100 more hires a year is a no-brainer for any
Mm,
leader. So always bring it to what matters to them, which is results.
yeah, the bottom line. Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah. What do you think's like the next innovation in recruitment or
Yeah.
talent acquisition?
There's quite a few. Very much interested in what's happening on sourcing these days. It's becoming very professionalized, very kind of, going deep into assessment. Sources are kind of going through what recruiters went through a couple of years ago. Now they are just actually like professionalizing arsenal of things that they have. Talent mapping and talent intelligence is really nothing new, but that usually sits with sourcing. But things like growth hacking, scraping, coding and automation. I've
Mm,
spoken to a couple of interested kind of sources that say they actually build their own code in a way to actually obtain profiles from different websites or different kind of portals online.
wow.
And I think that is really interesting. If you can, I think like, Google's and Amazon's are obviously at the forefront of that. They also have the resources and teams to do that. But if you can actually automate a lot of kind of the sourcing and go deep into different unusual kind of, portals that you would usually not kind of message people on, that may be kind of like one of the new frontiers in talent acquisition.
So it's not just like a word match, it's like a code or like an algorithm that kind of does the sourcing for you in a way. Is that what it is?
Yes.
Is that part of growth hacking? Is growth hacking like an umbrella term? Or is it
Growth
like,
hacking is a very, very fashionable term these
yeah,
days.
I've heard this a lot. Would you be able to enlighten us on
Sure.
what that
Yes,
would
of
be look like?
course. So growth hacking is, as the word kind of sounds, is about hacking your growth. So in a lot of kind of the marketing endeavors of the companies, especially the one that are scaling up, is probably building tiny little experiments to trying to see how to obtain clients. For example, a growth hacking thing could be, let's build a micro page that's going to be a game, and if you win the game, you, I don't know, going to convert or get our product, and see how well it does. And then you observe that experiment and just see if it's actually scaling and if it actually acquires virality. If people are organically sharing this and people are floating to this, then kind of that's a successful growth hacking attempt. And you can think of that kind of different kind of ways you can apply it across marketing. Now you can also apply the same to recruitment. So, what would we need to do in order to people to actually apply? Let's say, I had the idea about a game, but the same could be applied to recruitment. let's create a mini game, and if you win that game, you'll be able to maybe, I don't know, get a internship, internship at our company. You just have to like
Mm,
solve this game and see how viral it become. Obviously, I don't know, this is a great example, but it's basically looking at what can you do from kind of innovative marketing experiment kind of point of view in order to bring growth and bring actually people
yeah.
interested in your company.
So is it kind of like guerrilla marketing, where I know there'll be social media companies that make a viral TikTok about our product for like a social media manager job or something like that?
That could be one.
Yeah,
Yes. So anything that isn't kind of your standard arsenal that you want to experiment with, but that ultimately should have a goal of becoming viral and people actually should
yeah.
share it and organically grow kind of your in this way candidate base.
By the way, for any companies listening, TikTok could actually be an option for promotion. I've been on TikTok as like a consumer, scrolling through, kind of wasting my time away. But I started promoting this podcast on TikTok with like little clips, and I was very surprised. Very quickly, it made a difference in the number of listeners, because it's like you don't even need followers, like hardly have any followers, but you just have one video that does quite well and picks up a bit of traction, and it pushes stuff. So, say if you're a tech company in Berlin, if you have a TikTok behind the scenes of stuff, people in Berlin will get it on their page because it just pushes what you want basically to it. I don't know how they do it. I don't even want to know how they do it. I swear they're listening to us the whole time. But yeah, I think the rise of TikTok is like a big, big deal, and we've seen it. I don't know if you saw Zuckerberg, like I think it was last week. He was Their share price just like plummeted, and I think he's feeling the heat a lot now. And I
Yeah.
know they're doing this whole metaverse thing as well.
Having somebody resigned from their board as well
Mm,
not too long ago, a couple of days ago. Yes, they are feeling the pressure, they are feeling the burn, but ultimately, they are trying to do something that never been done before. Like if they succeeded first time around, I'll be surprised. Like nobody
mm,
ever succeeds first time around. So I'm not think it's a kind of the last of what they're doing, but I think what is interesting that it also overlaps with, I don't want to call it, cultural problems or challenges that they're having. And I think that is actually causing a lot of
yeah.
potential troubles for the company because they are internally maybe not in a good space, trying something new. And now, if it fails, is this really a shaky point for Facebook? Maybe, maybe.
Mm, mm. I don't. I keep changing my mind on the metaverse, and I think like there'll be like a partial metaverse, like partial adoption, but like humans are like they want to be that human contact, like a little bit. So I really don't know. I mean, maybe I'll listen to this back in 10 years and look like a complete idiot, but
Uh,
I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
I had actually this interesting conversation with one of my friends last week about it. And he was like, I would never use metaverse. And I was like, why? What would you do? Because he was like, I have to double up my life. He's like, I'm
Mm,
gonna wake up and dress in real life, and then I'm gonna go to metaverse and wake up and dress my character. And then he was like, I need to go and live like my physical life nonetheless. And then I have to like double this up and kind of live my virtual life. He was like, it's just so inconvenient. So that
mm,
until the companies don't figure out how to make it easier, like who wants to go shopping in a metaverse? I think like, going shopping in real life is already, quite an effort to undertake. And then would you go and shop in the metaverse as well? I don't know. He suggested it doubles up everything, which I think it's
mm.
a interesting challenge and a point to this discussion. But do I think it probably will take off? I guess coming back to what I already said about progress, if we can imagine it happening, it probably will happen.
Yeah,
It's just one of those things that it's in a very kind of incubation phase right now. But if they manage to solve some of the challenges, instead of us having now, this podcast and this meeting virtually, we could be doing this via metaverse. Like my
yeah,
avatar
that's
could be
true.
talking to your avatar, and that also would be possible. So it's not that kind of far fetched in a way.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I just struggle to imagine a world where it just completely replaces like that in person thing. I don't think it will, but
I
I
don't
don't
think you
know.
ever will. I think, like, imagine, like, humans are so wired for
Yeah,
interaction, for us for physicality in a way, like I cannot see us completely giving this up.
No, absolutely, no, absolutely not. But then I suppose like there's articles from like 1995 where they're like the internet will never take off, and then social media is just like, you could argue that that's made us like less together. So who knows?
True.
I know there's some companies. There's like a company called like I think VR Park or something where it's like you have basically like a virtual office, and companies are like doing interviews. The applicants are having to make like an avatar before they go for
I,
an interview and stuff.
I also see a great program. It's about kind of socializing and running events and workshops, and it already exists. And instead of running this as like a company event, as kind of like a video call, you actually run it in this platform that is like a game. There's like
Mm,
those little avatars walking around, and they actually represent employees. And there's like different event space designed virtually for you. And I think that was, I seen it during the pandemic when none of the company events could have taken
yeah,
place. People were actually organizing events there. So it's already somewhere in kind of in making.
yeah, absolutely. Well, who knows? But this podcast's all about kind of the future and the innovation. So I know we'll leave it up to Zuckerberg and his team to work that one out for us. So coming back to yourself, and we will finish soon. I know you are a very very busy man. Um, your career and in terms of what you want to achieve. So I know you've reached some pretty high levels in talent acquisition already. Are you at a stage now where you want to keep rising and rising, or are you now more about like the impact and the stuff you want to do? Is there certain like domains and companies that you want to be a part of? How, in your mind, do you see the next few years of your career panning out?
That's a good question, and I guess I have reached the kind of roles, and I was grateful and really kind of lucky in my life to actually do that. That I already led significant teams, led companies, led growth, managed to kind of do that fairly successfully. And I think I want to potentially now do really more around that kind of innovation in recruitment. That is kind of,
Mm,
we already spoke about it, how the future of sourcing going to look like. One of the other interesting question that I have in my head is what happens if you actually apply performance marketing rules into recruitment marketing. So imagine treating LinkedIn as a performance marketing channel when you have depths of data, budget, and you really actually try to go after really the specific people. So there is a lot of those very intriguing kind of the developments in TA that for me, kind of what do I want to do next is really kind of staying in the role that will help me kind of drive that innovation for the companies that really want to go after something extraordinary, remarkable, like really great, building great talent
mm,
acquisition teams. That's what I think it will be an amazing kind of development for me to really go into those topics more.
mm. Where does a lot of this innovation come from? Is there any like I want to say like forums, or is there just companies that will take a brave new step and it catches on? Is there any way you go to kind of keep abreast of all this stuff?
Yeah. And it's all, I think it depends from how people learn.
Mm,
General question. There are people that learn through reading, and there are people that actually learn from conversations and listening. I am the latter. So what actually drives a lot of my thinking is speaking to others within TA, within kind of the Berlin TA ecosystem, but also speaking to people outside of TA, and kind of seeing how they look back at us, and they look at our problems. And these days, accountability and ownership for recruitment doesn't only sit within the TA team, it sits across all the business functions. So everybody kind of has a stake away, but also everybody has a view. So connecting with others and actually really actively listening to your stakeholders, to the leadership, and to other really TA kind of professionals out there, that what really sparks a lot of my kind of innovative thoughts, saying, you know what, this could be actually a great idea. And also listening to your team. Sometimes the best
mm,
idea are actually when somebody's on the ground doing this every day in, day out, and they have a great thought how to actually make this better or what could work. So I am I kind of read a bit, and through LinkedIn and through some of the stuff that is online, but I am more a person that actually connects with people and then gets good idea through that.
Yeah. Podcasts for me, and part of the reason why I did this podcast as well is because I needed to learn more about the companies I work with, the people more importantly that I work with. And like, if I hadn't done this podcast, I would be way worse at what I do at my job. It's just there is definitely something, and I think that's why podcasts become so popular. That kind of in-depth look in a world that is, very short attention span. There's something quite refreshing about the rise of podcasts. But I mean, in terms of recruitment innovation, like, there is going to be plenty for you to get your teeth into over the next few years. And I think it's important to remember as well for anyone listening, like, if you take a look at Rob's profile, he's relatively still early on in his career, and like, you've achieved and held some pretty high level positions. So you must be doing something right.
Thank you. As a modest person,
Yeah.
it's always hard to hear when somebody is saying this. But I also been lucky. I guess I've been in the right time, right places, in the kind of right companies, and I guess also riding this wave that talent acquisition is on, and kind of really pushing professionalism and pushing innovation thought really, really kind of high up there. So I'm really enjoying. I guess you have to be also passionate about what you do, and I guess I'm really enjoying this, and that kind of helps me to really deliver something to those businesses and really kind of prove myself in those businesses, and ultimately kind of drives a bit of my success.
Absolutely. Well, I absolutely love what you're doing, and it's great to have people in the industry that are excited about it, that are pushing innovation and are looking to spread the words of that as well. And that is exactly why I wanted to get you on. And I certainly wasn't disappointed with some of the wisdom you shared. So we'll wrap up there, Rob. But thank you so much for your time. And maybe in a few years, we'll get back on and see if we're in the metaverse yet or not.
Great. That would be quite an interesting one to do if we can. But yeah, thanks, Alex, for this opportunity. And also, thank you, everybody listening at home. I hope you also got something interesting out of this.
Oh, I'm sure they would do. Thank you. Thank you so much for listening to the Building Our World podcast. Every view, stream, and download is massively appreciated. If you're new here, then please go back through the catalogue. There's some great gems from some of the brightest and the best in Berlin tech. And if you really like what you hear, then please do hit that follow and subscribe button. That's it for now, but until next time, goodbye.